On today's show, Dame goes off for the Bucks as they get back in the win column. Joel Embiid might need another surgery, and we talk about all three games on this edition of Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
What's up, everybody? I'm Danny Cunningham, host of Locked On Cavs. He's Swipa, host of Locked On Nuggets. And thank you for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else, on YouTube as well. Make sure you give us that thumbs up button, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Today's episode, of course, brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. We've got three games from Sunday afternoon. We had the Milwaukee Bucks first. Beat the Philadelphia 76ers 135-127. Swipe a Dame went off. He had 43, 8, and 8 in this one. Kyle Kuzma played in his second game for the Milwaukee Bucks since he was traded for Chris Middleton a little bit earlier on this week. And this was a Bucks team that I opened up the lead early. I don't think the game was necessarily as close as the final score here, but without Giannis, I think any win for Milwaukee is a good win.
Yeah, this would have been a perfect spot for the 76ers if their intention was to do so, to get some more momentum and get a win. This is one of the few times this year they've had Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey on the floor together. Now, Maxey and Embiid, they've filled their end of the bargain. Embiid gets 27, 12, 6 today. Tyrese Maxey, another 30-point game, 39 points on 5 of 10 from 3 and 16 to 23 from the field. And then Podcast Paul, he gives you 12 points and he gives you 4 of 8 from the field in this game. And Kyle Kuzma has another game with the Milwaukee Bucks. And then Damian Lillard, he just turns the clock back and he shoots over 50% from the field. 8 threes made in this game for Damian Lillard, who's consistently been one of the best shooters in the NBA his entire career. This was a good win for the Bucks. Obviously without Giannis dealing with a little bit of an injury. He will be back after the All-Star break just to give his body full rest. This would have been a chance for them to drop the game and to really just kind of creep into the All-Star break without getting any more momentum. And I think this is a good win considering that the 76ers had Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey on the court. And I also want to thank Dame, too, for, Damian Lillard, Hubie Brown, this is his last game that he will ever be calling, right? And Hubie Brown is, in my opinion, I think he's one of the all-time great NBA minds as a coach, as an analyst, but also as a color commentator. And, I talked about this on my Twitter a lot today, but, I have distinct memory of Hubie Brown and the calls that he would make and how he would talk about the game and players and things that he was always able to see. And what I love is that Damian Lillard, who's a longtime NBA veteran, he made sure that on his last night that he was going to get one of the great games played this year for one of the best guards of the modern era. And he really just put on a show. The Bucks put on a show, and they continue to stay firmly in place among the top 5 in the Eastern Conference, and they have a chance even, I think, to get as high as 4. So you want to continue to stack wins. You want to continue to take care of your business, and they did so today without their best player on the court.
Right, and I think 4 is probably their ceiling at this point as far as regular season goes with the standings. They're 5 games behind the New York Knicks, who are in third, and the Knicks are 8 games back of the Cavs. Bucks are 13.5 games back of the Cavs. So there's a sizable difference between those two teams. And it's kind of and we'll talk about the Detroit Pistons coming up in a little bit, but it's kind of a don't look now, but the Pistons are kind of creeping up there. They're only 2 games back of Milwaukee. And I think whether or not Milwaukee is able to move up or hang on to 5 is going to come down to health. Giannis is going to miss the rest of their games before the All-Star break. I believe they have 2 more games this week before they had their separate ways for a week for the All-Star game. And then he's supposed to be back when the team does return. It is, as you mentioned, a little bit of a convenient time for someone to have a bit of a nagging injury like this, which Cavs can obviously turn into. But having him be fresh and healthy on the other side of that All-Star break is a really big deal because they're not I don't want to say they're not a competent team. They are, but they're not a threat to anybody without Giannis. With Giannis, they become a dangerous team. Without Giannis, they're a team that can go win, but I don't think they're a team that anybody is or should be scared of. And then on the other side, The one thing in terms of news that came out from Philadelphia during this game was reporting from ESPN's Lisa Salters about Joel Embiid. And she was talking about his knee injury, and she talked to him, and he said, it's going to be something that bothers him all year long. He wishes he could play in every game, but that's just not a realistic thing. He's not going to play in back-to-backs. And then she threw in there that he likely is going to need another surgery this summer with a long recovery off of that surgery before he feels like himself and he's able to play as many games as he wants to. This kind of got me thinking with where Philly's at in the standings. They're a game and a half behind Chicago for 10th. And I know that their draft pick is top 6 protected, and they're going to need lottery luck no matter where they finish to hang out of that. But if I'm Philly, if I'm Joel Embiid, I feel like it might be the time to shut it down and go ahead and get that surgery.
Look, this is one of the most unfortunate things in the NBA, and honestly, this sucks for Embiid. Embiid is one of the most talented players, literally, the NBA has ever seen, and he is one of the most unique and skilled big men the league has ever seen. But throughout his career, he's had to deal with so many different kinds of injuries, and he has done his best to come back from every single one of them, including this year, and he deserves real credit for that. But if I was the 76ers, if I'm Embiid, they need to shut him down, I believe, for the rest of the year. I just don't understand the point. There's this, and I think this is just kind of how ownership works in the front office. They literally, Daryl Morey said the other day that if you peak, you can see a championship contender on this team. And I'm just like, no. Embiid is not
pieces.
Even 7. Well, I don't see pieces. I see Tyrese Maxey. Okay.
Yeah, that's a piece. I think that they have some championship players. Like I see Embiid being a championship player, Tyrese Maxey being a championship player, sure, but there's no championship team here.
Embiid is 70% healthy, if that. You are not getting anywhere close to an NBA championship with an Embiid who is just a diminished version of himself. You don't know when he can stay on the floor, and he can't move. I think this is the issue I always have with how the league really promotes this idea that players put your team first. Do whatever the team asks from you. Well, that's cool. He's had his knee scoped, his meniscus scoped twice for this team for no reason, when he should have gotten it fully repaired, sat down the rest of the year, and then come back. And then now he's playing through another knee injury, and he's going to have to get another knee surgery to be able to play and help this team to do what? And again, they got Paul George on the roster, and Paul George is making so much money, and he's been drastically underperforming what his contract would expect of him this year. And I don't want to hear any excuses for it, because you know what? When the team needs you to show up and get the job done, you got to do it. It's that simple. Now, also, they have had so many different, but here's the thing. Daryl Morey, the thing they're positioned to do is go into the offseason and have the opportunity to move money around. So they'll still be able to add some people to this team. And I think if everybody was healthy, if everybody was 100%, I would agree. I think they have a real championship level pieces on this team that you could see at least make it to the NBA Finals. But again, Danny, right now, they're not doing what's best for Joel. Joel needs to sit down and allow for his body to get fully back. But the thing is, if the organization is not going to tell that to the player and tell them that, hey, if we actually sit you down now, it's February. By the time we get to next October, you're going to be 100%, have a chance to play 65 games, and we're going to have a chance to push this roster over the top. But instead, I think Embiid's just kind of going to drag through this year, hope they make the playoffs and lose that first round pick. And then we're just right back here next year.
And it's to me, it has become a what's the point of all this type thing? Because they are, so as of right now, they are 5 games back of the 8th seed. They have a 20-32 record. Now, they're only a game and a half back of 10th. But if you're in that 9-10 game, you got to win 2 play-in games and then go face the 1 seed. This team in its current form is not beating the Cavs. And give Joel Embiid credit, because when he's out there, he's been really good, but this team is not beating the Cavs 4 times in a postseason series. Mm-hmm. So for me, the ceiling for this group as is losing in the first round. The ceiling for this group next year might be something different if they're healthier, if Joel Embiid goes and gets that surgery. But why? What is the point of moving forward like this? The best thing, like if Joel Embiid wants to put the team first, and I think that's admirable to a point, but if you want to put the franchise first, getting the surgery now is doing that, because it sets them up to be more successful next year, because they're not going to find success this season. Like, that ship has sailed.
Right. Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Like the best player, your mindset is always, I'm the best thing for this team. So the team needs me to play. And then, we can continue this on the other side too, but there are some drastic things that need to be addressed within Philadelphia. And I don't actually think that no matter what happens this year with Embiid, I don't even know if Embiid is in their future going forward, because I honestly think they just need a huge reset for the organization as a whole.
Well, we'll do that next, plus talk about Houston and Detroit as well on Locked On NBA Game Night. Today's show brought to you by Skims. Yeah, we're going to talk about my underwear, because my underwear now that I've got Skims is the best. When I found out that they were making underwear for men, I was a little confused, a little taken back. Hey, is that really going to work? Well, I've got them, and let me tell you, it works to perfection. I've worn a lot of different underwear throughout my life in terms of brands, materials, all that stuff. I tend to stick with the same style, and Skims does it better than anybody else. I tried it, and I'm hooked. It's perfect for the type of lifestyle I want to live, more of an active one. That's why I go with the Stretch 5-inch boxer brief. It's the most comfortable pair of underwear that I've ever worn. And if you want to be in the same boat as me and you want comfort from your underwear, Skims Men, the place to go. So shop Skims Men's at skims.com in Skims stores. That's SKIMS.com. Let them know we sent you. So after you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows in. If you're looking for the perfect gift for your Valentine or for yourself, Skims just launched their Valentine's shop, available in sizes for women, men, kids, and even pets. So again, head on over to Skims Men's at skims.com or in select Skims stores, SKIMS.com, Skims Men's. Thank you for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. But before the break, you mentioned, the best thing for the franchise in Philly might just be a hard reset. And that is something I could see coming. I could also see unhappiness coming from Joel Embiid, but I also think it could be a difficult situation this summer for Philly, for the Sixers, because trading Joel Embiid can be a difficult thing. But also, what other teams out there are going to look at him, a guy who has dealt with significant injuries throughout his career, and say, yes, we believe we can make that work without proof of him being able to stay healthy? Like, that's the biggest question I have if they do decide to move him, or if he decides he wants out.
Look, I agree. I understand it will be difficult. I don't even know who the direct trade target would be. I mean, it's that bad. If it's that bad. Now, again, the question is, at his peak, does anybody want to trade for a clear top 4 player in the league, who's one of the best scorers, if not the best regular season scorer in the league, who's a dominant defender, who's a plus passer as a big, who has a great headsy tween package as a big, who's a great post player, who is one of the most consistent players in the league when he's healthy, and he's also terrifying when he's hitting his jump shots? Who wouldn't want that? Everybody should line up for that.
Right.
There's about only 4 or 5 guys I wouldn't trade for that. But I think that's the thing. I don't know what team is going to have the cap room. And then also, he provides what we need on our ceiling and have the assets that we can give up to make that work. Now, that's like a Boston thing. This is legitimately something Boston or LA would do, where they're like, oh, sure, here's Rui Hachimura, Dorian Finney-Smith, Austin Reeves, a first, whatever else here. And then Joel Embiid comes back, and next thing you know, he plays 45 games. He's healthy for all of them. He averages 30, 13, and 5. And then he goes to the playoffs, and all of a sudden Embiid's like, you know what? I feel pretty good. Now you got a Luka, Joel Embiid pick and roll, and LeBron's that's over here is just relaxing on the sideline like, wow. That's literally how this would go. I think Embiid is incredible. I would love, just imagine if he was on the Cavaliers. Just imagine if he was playing for that team. Imagine he was playing in Denver. I think the idea of Embiid is so tantalizing, but the issue is, Danny, whoever pulls the trigger on that trade, it's not going to stake their career at all, but you're really going to have the organization to bring a player in, not play them for a majority of the year, manage them well, and then by the playoffs, you're able to fully deploy them. It's going to have to be a 10-step plan approved from ownership, front office, coaches, and to the training staff in order to get Joel Embiid in your roster.
And that's a hard thing to pull off. And it's
Yeah.
not that teams, because everything you mentioned about him is spot on. Like, he is that guy. There's a reason he's won an MVP. There's a reason why Philadelphia, despite all of the injury issues that he's had, is still signing up for this year after year, because they know that at his peak, when he's healthy, he's one of the handful of best players in the NBA. And there's no question about that. It's just that whole when he's healthy thing, because that's the thing that hasn't happened frequently enough. He's not played enough games. He'll never make another all NBA team. He'll never win an MVP, not because he's not that caliber player, but because he's never going to play 65 games again. And that's fine. But for him to win a championship, I think you're right. I think the only path forward for that to happen is probably him playing 40 games in a season. Maybe, and the NBA would hate this, but maybe the best path forward for him is, his season doesn't start until Christmas. Say he doesn't play in any of those games between opening night and late October and Christmas. And then he's playing in about 60% of the games moving forward. So he is fresh for the playoffs, ends up playing around 40 games. And that's when you can give it a go towards a championship. I just don't know if that's going to be something a team can sign up for.
Well, here's the thing about the NBA though. Like, what are you complaining about? Like, if he plays 40 games, like he's clearly he's managing a real injury. And then on top of that, if you do sign him, but again, all in this to say, because I know we got to move on, Danny. I think they should trade him. I think they should do whatever they can to trade him. And I think Embiid should get a fresh start in a new situation. Because I think if he goes to a new situation, he can rebuild his image. He can get around the team that can really sustainably build around him well, and also manage his injuries. And then again, I would love to see Embiid have one healthy playoff run at least while he's somewhere in his prime.
Yeah, I think that would be a great thing for all NBA fans. I don't know that if it'll ever happen, unfortunately. Moving on to the next game, the Houston Rockets beat the Toronto Raptors 94-87. Rockets snap a 6-game losing streak. They fell all the way from second in the standings. They were fifth. They moved back up to fourth with this win over Toronto today. And this swipe, I think, is kind of the reason why this game in particular is a big reason why I don't view Houston as a team that should scare anybody in the postseason. Defensively, they're awesome. Anytime you hold an NBA team to 87 points, I don't care who you are, you should be happy with the defensive effort. But I just don't know that they've got the scoring to win in the postseason, man.
Well, the biggest thing about Houston is they haven't had Fred VanVleet. Tari Eason was out. Steven Adams was out. Jabari obviously is still out. All that together, they're missing veterans. They're missing key rotational players. And I think that's what's also not helping them in this run that they've been on. But to your point, Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun are their number one and number two option. Amin Thompson is developing into their number one option, but they're just not good enough. And I think the last couple of games, especially y'all, if you watch that Dallas game and all with Sengun in the first half versus Anthony Davis, he just looked like he didn't belong on the floor with him. Mm-hmm. And I think when they get in the playoff setting, it's going to be really difficult for them to create consistent offense because they don't have any players that really truly strike fear in you or can bring you to a point where in a half court setting, they're putting you in bind after bind after bind after bind. And you just can't get a response with Jalen Green unless he's hitting his 3-pointers that day and his pull-ups. So I never thought they were like a serious Western Conference team. I think they're going to win a lot of games in the regular season. They might win 50 games this year. But I think they're ahead of their timeline too. They're honestly what OKC should be. Like, oh, young, figuring it out. Whereas OKC's like, oh, young, you're not. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah, they figured it out in OKC. They're a little bit like what OKC was 2 years ago. I think that's kind of where they are now. I don't know that they have a player quite like what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is, and they will have a better record than what OKC was 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, OKC was 40-42. They were a good team. They were a team that played.
But remember, Danny, they had to shut down SGA because they were winning too many games with SGA. So,
right, but that's kind of where. But that was a team that was not going to play in the playoffs, but they were surprisingly good early before they shut down SGA. Right,
right.
Like I kind of think that is where
that was
OKC
the funniest
thing.
Right now. They were like, no way, no. Whatever your injury is, go get it cleaned up right now. We're not doing this anymore. We're gonna miss on the Chet Holmgren.
Yes, and I don't know that they are 2 years behind where OKC is. Like, do I envision 2 years from now us talking about a
Alvin Thompson? Maybe,
but it's a big maybe because if he develops a jumper, he's there. I just don't know that he's going to develop that. Like if that hits, he's going to be a top 5 player.
The
Yes,
best
like I
athlete in
think
the sport with a jumper.
yes, like if he is that, I think he's going to win an MVP.
Right,
I could not be higher on him, but that
right.
is kind of the biggest if. Like if there's one
Mhm,
thing that I would prefer you not have to need to really figure out, it's
mhm.
that because everything else is there. He's an incredible defender, one of if not like you said the best athletes in the NBA. I love watching him play. It's
Mhm.
just I need you to be able to shoot like that. If he
No,
does that,
100%.
then
Yeah.
OKC. We're talking about them where OKC is right now, but if he doesn't, they're not 2 years behind OKC. They're further behind them. I don't know if that'll happen. I don't expect that to happen this year. I don't expect them to be a team that is scaring anybody. They'll fight valiantly in a series, but I don't expect them to win a postseason series,
Mhm.
especially considering who they might have to face. Do you want to talk about Detroit because they get another win? They're a team that I think has looked pretty good over the past month or so. So we'll do that. Plus, who might fall out of the play-in? That's all straight ahead right here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Today's show brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get it in than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. FanDuel's live betting feature is something that keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether you're backing your team for a late-game rally or if you're picking a player to hit a clutch three. You never feel like you miss your chance. Plus, the app very easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. That's a big thing. You don't want to be waiting around for that money. You get paid instantly. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com. That is FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you again for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today and every day. If you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest content. Also, make sure you go sign up for your favorite team's newsletter. Head on over to LockedOnDaily.com. That is LockedOnDaily.com for the ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox every single weekday. So the third game of the day on Sunday, Detroit beat the Charlotte Hornets 112-102. Tobias Harris was really good in this one. And this was also, I believe, Dennis Schroeder's first game with the Pistons to help give Cade Cunningham a little bit of help in terms of creation. Pistons have, and I watched them this week against the Cavs in Detroit. They've been playing some good basketball. They look much different from who they were at the start of this season.
Look, a lot of people, they owe apology letters to Cade Cunningham, and I know people have started to ship him out, but you might have him at the house still because you just didn't send him out through FedEx. But people just thought he wasn't a winning player and wasn't a good player, and I just think Cade has been exceptional this year. I love the way he plays. I love the way they play together. I love watching him, and I think that everybody was down on the Tobias Harris signing. Tobias has been good, like 9 of 13 today, 20 points. Great veteran leadership, plays defense, knows where he's supposed to be. Asor Thompson, like his brother's getting all the love, but he was 16 points. He's one of the best wing defenders in the league already. Tim Hardaway Jr., cast off, hits important shots. He also helps them to be able to kind of diversify their offense, especially in late game situations by spreading out the shooting. And then you add Malik Beasley into that, who just had his career high the other night, comes back today, had 17 points off the bench. They just have the right combination of players around Cade and that are veterans and that have won playoff games before, which helps them and enables them to be even better. So I love what Detroit is building. I love the culture they're establishing. I think that JD Bickerstaff, I think he got unceremoniously dismissed in his last job for several different things. I think the coach that's there now has done an exceptional job but I think he is proving that every stop he's been to, he's helped to improve the team, especially when it includes a lot of young players and helping them to figure out how to play true NBA basketball.
So this Detroit Pistons team, to me, and I don't know how well you'll remember this team from a couple of years ago, but they are the Cavs the year before Donovan Mitchell arrived, where that team had a lot of really nice young pieces. I think Detroit has a lot of really nice young pieces. But they were very reliant at that time, the Cavs were, on Darius Garland as sort of the only creator that they had. If you remember, Colin Sexton had a knee injury. He missed basically that whole season. Ricky Rubio tore his ACL for the second time in December after he had a really good start. And the Cavs surprised a lot of people with the record. They ultimately fell in the play and did not make the playoffs. But that's sort of where I view this Detroit Pistons team. Like, they are a really nice young story. They have a lot of really talented pieces. And I thought the second that Monty Williams was gone in Detroit, I thought JB Bickerstaff is the perfect guy for that job. He will get the Pistons to where they should be with the amount of talent on the roster. He will get the most out of Cade Cunningham. He will develop a true culture there because that's exactly what he did here in Cleveland. So I am one of the people that I never sold stock on Cade Cunningham. Like, I always thought he was going to be a star player. So I don't have to send an apology letter there because I never did anything warranting an apology. But the Pistons have kind of turned into exactly who I thought they would be under JB this year.
Yeah, just a bunch of adults in the room. And I think when you're a young team, that's probably one of the most important things you can have. So shout out to the Pistons, man. I'm actually excited to see what they look like in the playoff setting, especially if they play versus the Knicks. Think about it. New York versus Detroit. Come on now. That would
I have a feeling that might look a lot like the Cavs-Knicks series did a couple of years ago for several reasons. I think that the Knicks have a little bit more offense now than they did then with Karl Anthony Towns, but that could turn into a real rock fight. And I think
what if Cade's legitimately good in his first playoff series too?
I mean, that is for Detroit. That would be the best possible outcome this year. Like, this year is already a massive success for that team.
Right.
There's no debating that. Like, if you're a Pistons fan, you're thrilled with how this year has gone. But at this point, I don't think it's fair to expect them to win a postseason series. But if Cade Cunningham comes out, say they get the Knicks and they lose to New York in 6 games,
25, 6 and 7 for Cade on 61 true shooting. It's like,
you feel real good about that. Like, that is the thing that can, I don't even want to say change how you feel about the future, because you probably feel pretty good about it right now if you're a Pistons fan. But if he comes out and he's a dude in the playoffs, then I think you feel even better. Like, that's the one thing between now and when their season ends that could make you feel better as a Pistons fan than you already should. But we've spent a good chunk of time today talking about teams that could be play-in teams, could maybe fall out of the play-in, get into the play-in in Philadelphia's point, and maybe fall into it in Houston's point. Who do you think right now is in danger, maybe bottom of the play-in or bottom of the standings, falling out of that top 6 right now? Are there any teams that stick out to you as far as
in the West or the East and West combined? In the East and West combined. So the Rockets are scary to me because they started off so well, and all of a sudden the Lakers got handed gift wrapped Luka Doncic. Okay. And then the Timberwolves are playing very well as of late. They're 8-2 in their last 10. Anthony Edwards has also picked it up the whole month of January and now February. And then on top of that, the Grizzlies are playing well still. The Nuggets, they're 16-6, I think, in their last 22 games. The Clippers, Kawhi Leonard's there. I think they'll continue to figure out their defense as elite. And then all of a sudden, the Mavericks, they got Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving and Daniel Gafford. And then eventually, Derek Lively hopefully comes back. I legitimately think that the Rockets could fall all the way to 7 or 8 if they're not careful. Now, the Wolves are the one that's a little touchy to me because they could actually stay in the 6 range right there. But I'm not going to be surprised either if that Dallas starts making a real push for that spot, just because now they got all their people back on the court and their defense is maybe the best in the West outside of OKC. So I think the Rockets are in danger of falling out, but that's not going to be necessarily their fault. It's just the way that everything is broke. And here's what I'll say about the Eastern Conference, my brother. This is my issue with the way that things are shaping out in the East. Are you ready?
I cannot wait to hear this.
The Magic, I don't know if they actually want to win. They might want to reset.
I think they want to win. I think they're incapable of scoring.
The Hawks, they don't want to win.
Correct.
They're shipping off the rest of their team. They already owe their pick. It's not happening. Whatever. The Bulls don't want to win. I don't think
they do. They should not want to win, but they do want to win. Did you hear what Karnisova said this week?
Yeah.
Where he's like, you know, you can put together 9 or 10 guys and like they want to make the playoffs. They should not want to, but I'll push back on that. They want to win. It's dumb that they do, but they do.
Yeah. Well, they're not going to. Let me make it easy for you, Arturos. You're not going to. The 76ers, they're tweening. The Nets don't want to win. They just are good.
Right.
The Raptors are just learning how to play basketball. They don't really want to win. And the Charlotte and Wizards, I don't really there are, I think, in the Eastern Conference, I think there are 7 good teams, 7 playoff level teams. Everybody else is just feeder. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you want to make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, I think you can. Because I just think everything is mid after you get from 6 and 7 with the Heat. And after that, it's really like everybody else is just whatever.
Right. I do wonder what Orlando would look like had Paolo not missed that
100%.
huge chunk of time. Like if they,
100%.
I think their record would be better if Paolo, and then Franz missing time too. So I'm hesitant to say that they're 7 and not 8 just because I saw Orlando up close in the playoffs last year. Like I firmly believe Paolo is like a superstar level dude that hasn't quite reached his apex yet, obviously.
Ooh,
and that injury didn't help. I think he's going to be awesome, man. I really, really think that he's going to be
I like Paolo a lot. Superstars, that's tough. That's tough. But I think
he can get there.
I think he can be a star for sure. Superstar, like that shot making, the finishing is going to have to be there. The playmaking is going to have to get there. I think he can kind of reach where Tatum was, maybe in 21. He can maybe get the Tatum.
I would consider that to be superstar level. So maybe it's more on the definition of.
Well, you think the Cavs have 3 superstars then?
I wouldn't go that far. I think
2?
they have a superstar right now. I think Donovan Mitchell is a superstar. I think superstar is more about
a 1A option leading a championship team. No,
I think it's possible.
Man,
right?
no way.
With how good
Garland's been the most important player in that roster, and he ain't no superstar.
No, he's not a superstar right now. No, he's definitely not a superstar. I wouldn't. But I think Donovan Mitchell, like I think that he qualifies as a superstar. He's a perennial all-star. He's going to be all NBA again this year. Like I think he's finished. I think he finished 6th in MVP voting. Like he is a superstar to me. And I think Paolo can be right there.
Okay. I feel that.
I would include Orlando in that top 8, and they want to win. They've just had so many injuries, especially that have really impacted them offensively. And I think it's probably a little bit of a disservice. They didn't try and upgrade that team at the trade deadline, but I think that they probably belong in the group that wants to win. And then after that, so you've got 8 teams that want to, and then you've got 7 teams that don't in that conference.
Yeah,
like it's
tough.
A dumpster fire there.
I think in the West it's the opposite. Like I think the Western Conference, everybody but Utah and the Pelicans. I even think the Portland, because remember, Portland's playing well, y'all. Portland is 8-2 in their last 10 games.
Yeah,
they want really good to compete. So your 13th ranked team in the NBA has been one of the best teams in the league over the last almost near month. So that's the issue. Is like in the West, it's like the Jazz, they just have no incentive to, and then the Pelicans are hurt. But even Zion can give you 40. And you know what I mean? Like that's the issue. Is like the Western Conference is everybody's talented. It's just that everybody is talented, but everybody at that top, like the top dogs in the West, like Houston, great year. Great. Memphis, great year. Guess what? The Nuggets got Jokic. The OKC has Shea. The Lakers have LeBron and Luka. The Wolves have Ant. They got Rudy Gobert. And then on top of that, the Clippers got Kawhi and Harden. And then on top of that, the Mavericks got Anthony Davis and Kyrie. The Kings, they're not sniffing anything. And the Kings got LaVine, DeRozan, and Sabonis. The West is just different.
Much different.
Yeah.
Much different. It'll be very interesting to see who's able to hang on, who's able to move up, who maybe falls out for the last 30 games of the year. But appreciate you making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today. And of course, every day we'll be back tomorrow talking about all the games in the association as we creep closer to the All-Star break.